how to not start your mediation practice. In this video, I want to share with you what you shouldn't do when you're starting out as a mediator and tell you what you should be doing. Because very often we see new mediators start their practice on the basis of some kind of passion or some kind of past experience without really validating whether that idea is commercially viable. Now, it's absolutely fine to be passionate about what you do. In fact, it is recommended. But since it's so difficult to start a mediation practice, you want to make sure that you give yourself the best possible circumstances for being successful with it. And without having that commercial viability in mind, it's going to be quite difficult for you to be successful within a reasonable time frame if success for you is a business that you can live on. So let me share a few slides with you. Generally, the drivers of this success comes down to where you are today. If you're already established, then it typically will be easier for you to become even more financially successful with the practice. If you're starting out, well, it will take a little bit longer in general. It also comes down to how much work you put in and the quality of that work. It's not about doing the most amount of work and any type of work, because you need to make sure that you're doing the right things. And that's what we're covering in many of our videos and webinars. And all of that is free, so feel free to check it out after watching this video. So make sure that you put in quality work and that you put in a fair amount of work. Finally, it's the duration of your efforts. So bursts of efforts and bulking and batching work is generally much less effective than doing regular work every day, a little bit every day over time. So with that said, we have the roadmap. So let's begin with asking yourself some basic questions around your commercially viable offer. So the first thing that you should do is just look at 3 to 5 areas that you're passionate about and just write that down on a piece of paper. Is there something in particular that obviously could be replicated in mediation context, but you can still approach this from a wider lens? Just take down all of the different areas that you are passionate about. And then write down what kind of skill sets and experiences that you currently have. It doesn't have to be in a mediation context. Just write down what you've learned in the past as an employee through extracurricular activities, anything else that you can think of. And then think about your mediation practice. So given these 3 to 5 passion areas, given your skill sets, your experiences, what potential clients would you have? So who is it that ultimately would need you? Is it couples going through divorce? Is it HR professionals? Is it personal injury attorneys and their clients? Or the clients of personal injury attorneys, rather. And then once you're done with that, look at who your potential referral parties are. So who is it that would provide you with business? Is it the HR professionals themselves that also will be needing your help? Is it the personal injury attorneys that will refer you business on the back of their personal injury clients? Or is it something entirely different? So there's a difference here between the clients and the referral parties. And the reason why we're doing this is just to give you a very good understanding of your ecosystem, the ecosystem that you're going to be operating in. And then finally, list any other source of business. So you could, for example, get business from different kinds of panels and directories. Now, once that is done, let's move on. And next, you should ask yourself the following questions. Is someone else providing these services today, services in these areas today? It's important for you to be aware of this, because if no one else is doing what you intend to do, it may mean that you've come up with a fantastic idea. There's a gap in the market and no one else have thought of that. But it could also mean that a lot of people have tried and is simply not commercially viable. You want to make sure that whatever you do has the possibility of becoming commercially viable within a reasonable time frame. You don't want to end up in a situation where you are trying to create the market and you are in a situation where you're going to have to educate those market participants on the benefits of the mediation services that you're providing, because that typically will mean that it will take a long time for you to make that commercially viable. So look at the market. Is anybody else providing those services today? If they are you able to get a sense of whether that's successful or not? Now, for some of you listening into this, you're going to be operating in markets where there's plenty of market participants. So it will be relatively easy to assume that there is money to be made in that space. And for some of you, it's going to be much more difficult. But just completing this exercise will provide you with the tools for properly evaluating whether this is something that you want to go ahead with or not. And not just on the back of you being passionate about something. Finally, is there sufficient business to support new participants? Now, again, this is a difficult question to answer because you're not able to easily find this kind of information out, but you can do your best. You know, if you know people that are already active as mediators in this space, you can talk to them. They may or may not share freely, but perhaps you can have multiple conversations with multiple people, and it will provide you with at least a better overview than you had prior to having those conversations. So once you've done that, you can go from planning to action, because this is very important. The exercise that we do by ourselves in the comfort of our own home at our desk is not the same as the exercise that we're going to be conducting here, where you're actually testing the hypothesis with your market participants. Because our opinion and understanding and analysis may be completely wrong, because, well, for many different reasons. So we want to make sure that we get a sense of whether this works or doesn't work by interacting with the entities and individuals that ultimately will become our clients and will refer us cases. So the way you do this is you simply reach out to your market participants, the entities and individuals that will refer cases to you or become clients of you. And you will sort of through them help validate this hypothesis, whether it is viable or not. And the way you do that is simply by talking with them. You know, is this a type of service that you would be interested in? You know, is this type of service that you would pay for? You know, how much would you pay for it? And having these kind of conversations will equip you with a lot of important information. What you can do to take things even further is to try to get paid for that service, because there is a difference between someone telling you that, sure, I'd be happy to pay for this, and them actually forking up the money for it. So that's an additional step that you can take. Now, you may feel like, whoa, you know, this makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to have to reach out to people and talk to them and try to position my service, and I don't even know if this is working or not. Well, let me tell you this. If you are on this journey trying to start your mediation practice, you are going to have to do that anyway, because you're not going to get business based on your diplomas and the school that you went to, and generally not even the people that you know, because most of the people that you know are probably going to be your peers. So at some stage, very, very soon, if you're serious about this, you're going to have to start reaching out to people that can become referral parties and clients of you. So you are going to have these conversations anyway. And it's much better for you to have those conversations early on to validate your hypothesis, rather than waiting for a few years and then having sunk a lot of time, money, and energy into this, only to find out that it may not work. So the sooner you do this uncomfortable work, the better for you. And the benefit, the additional benefit, is also that you're going to be a little bit more resilient and more used to interacting with people that may tell you no, or they may tell you that we love this service. So do complete this stage as well. And some final pointers that I think is important to keep in mind. Always keep an open mind and listen to what your market is telling you. Because you may have preconceived ideas about, well, a lot of different things. What your referral parties want, what your client wants, how much they're prepared to pay for it, what the competitive landscape looks like, how decisions are made. You know, you may think that you have a perfect understanding of that. You may even have been actively working in some different capacity in the very space where you're trying to provide mediation services. But trust me on this one, that's not the same thing as you acting as a mediator and getting paid work from someone. That's very, very different. So you need to keep an open mind. You need to listen, because they may be telling you that this doesn't work, or they may be telling you that what you're proposing now is probably not the best idea. But here is a variation of that we think is a great idea. And that leads us to the second point. Be prepared to pivot and provide alternative solutions to the same target audience, or maybe you will provide different solutions to new target audiences. And the target audience here is simply the entities and individuals that can provide you with business directly or indirectly. Thirdly, do not try to fit your solution into places where it's not needed and doesn't fit. Really important. And this sort of keeps coming back to the fact that you need to have your eyes and ears open and be flexible to adapt. It may be a question of your target audience telling you that, listen, we don't think mediation service is what we need, but what we do need is someone to provide advisory consulting services. Well, if they're telling you that, then you can make a decision on whether you think it's a good idea to do that temporarily, or maybe you want to switch gears completely and do that altogether. But at least you have an opportunity there to start getting to know someone and start extracting information to be able to provide better services in the future. And then obviously you're able to provide value to those individuals. Finally, do not try to create a market unless you have unlimited time, money, and energy. I mentioned that earlier on here in this presentation. This is really important. You want to make sure that all of the exercises that you will have completed on the back of this short video will lead you to making a decision on whether your new mediation business and the services and the target audiences that you have in mind, whether that is financially viable or not. So that's it. I hope you found this video useful. If you like this kind of content, then please make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Thanks very much for listening in.